Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. I am happy you are here tonight. Maybe you are watching from your bed, sitting on a couch, or under the stars. It is nice to have your company. If you are new, you can press the like button and subscribe for more calm and curious talks. And if you are already subscribed, then thank you, because your quiet support keeps this small peaceful place growing. I will try not to make tonight's topic too interesting, because the aim is to help you relax and maybe sleep, but if you stay awake you will at least learn about the hidden life of plants. So get comfortable, close your eyes, and breathe deeply, because tonight we explore how the green world makes life possible for everything on Earth. How something so still and silent created the right conditions for life to exist. Plants are often ignored because they are everywhere. A tree is just part of the background. Grass is just the ground we walk on. Yet they keep the planet alive. We breathe because of them. We eat because of them. They help us build our homes, cure illnesses, and even give us dreams with the compounds they create. They shaped the air, the climate, the soil, and cooled the earth. So what makes Earth alive, and how did plants help in this transformation? Tonight we follow their story from tiny photosynthetic microbes in ancient seas to today's forests and flowers. We will see how photosynthesis filled the air with oxygen, how roots and flowers evolved, how trees connect through hidden networks, and how plants made civilization possible by feeding, healing, and sheltering us. From algae in the ocean to the tallest redwoods, the green world tells a story of strength and generosity. This is not a fast story, because plants do not rush. So let us move slowly like a flower opening. When you start to really notice green life, trees no longer fade away. Grass whispers its own story. And you see that life itself is a gift that grew in the sunlight long before leaves and flowers. Early Earth had no oxygen, only volcanic gases like methane and carbon dioxide. In the shallow seas, tiny single-celled organisms called cyanobacteria began a process that would change the planet. They were not plants but their ancestors. Floating in sunlight, they learned to make food from light, water, and carbon dioxide, creating sugars and releasing oxygen. At first, oxygen reacted with iron in the oceans, making rust on the sea floor. But as more was made, it started escaping into the air. Oxygen slowly began to fill the sky, and this was called the Great Oxygenation Event about 2.5 billion years ago. It was one of the most important changes on Earth. It happened quietly through bacteria, and for many early creatures oxygen was deadly because it damaged their cells and disrupted their way of living. This led to the first mass extinction, not by asteroid or volcano but by too much oxygen. Yet from this destruction came new life. Oxygen allowed energy to be used more efficiently and life to become more complex, leading eventually to plants, animals, and humans. Cyanobacteria kept working for millions of years and later joined with other single-celled organisms to form the first algae and plants. Inside every green leaf today are chloroplasts, which are the descendants of those ancient microbes and still hold some of their original DNA. Photosynthesis reshaped the air, helped create the ozone layer, and built a safe place for life in the oceans. These microbes became the engineers of the planet, using only molecules, sunlight, and time, and the same process still powers most life today. Every leaf turns light into sugar and releases oxygen. Without photosynthesis there would be no food, no air, no humans. For half of Earth's history there was no oxygen, only methane, carbon dioxide, and other gases. Until cyanobacteria and algae began releasing it into the air. At first the oxygen reacted with iron in the oceans making rust, then after the oceans were full of oxygen it began to collect in the atmosphere. To many early creatures it was poison and they died or hid in oxygen-free places. But this change made possible aerobic respiration, which let organisms get more energy from food and evolve into more complex life forms. Around 470 million years ago the first plants moved onto land like mosses and liverworts. They grew in damp places, made more oxygen, cooled the planet, and helped giant insects grow during the Carboniferous period. When oxygen levels were high, today most oxygen still comes from ocean plankton and the rest from plants on land. This balance between photosynthesis and respiration has kept oxygen stable for millions of years, but it depends on living plants. Without them the air would change. Every breath you take once came through a leaf or a plankton cell. The air is a gift made over billions of years, so the next time you see a tree, remember it is not only for shade or fruit but for the air that keeps you alive. Life stayed mostly in the oceans for billions of years. The seas were full of tiny microbes, early animals, and algae catching sunlight, while the land was bare, rocky, and lifeless, looking more like Mars with volcanoes and strong ultraviolet light. But slowly some green algae began adapting to places that dried sometimes, like pond edges, wet rocks, and tidal flats. These areas were harsh but had more light, carbon dioxide, and space. Over generations these algae developed stronger outer walls to keep from drying, simple structures to attach to surfaces, and protection for their reproductive cells. This gave rise to the first land plants such as mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. They were small and stayed close to the ground, soaking water through leaves and stems, thriving only in damp places, yet they changed the land by holding soil, keeping moisture, and creating microhabitats. They captured carbon dioxide, released oxygen, cooled the planet, and made it possible for other life to follow. They developed a waxy coating called the cuticle to stop water loss and tiny pores called stomata to breathe while keeping moisture in. They partnered with fungi in the soil for nutrients in exchange for sugars. This cooperation still exists in most plants today. These pioneers slowed erosion, made soil from rock, changed the way water flowed, and brought life to dry land. They created the first green landscapes. Soft moss on rocks, small leafy forms on damp ground, no flowers or trees yet, but they laid the foundation for all future ecosystems. Even now mosses store carbon in peat bogs, hold water in forests, and grow in the smallest cracks. They turned rock into soil, air into energy, and emptiness into life. They spread slowly, adapting leaf by leaf, starting in water, moving to shore, and proving that photosynthesis could work in open air. These early plants were ecological revolutionaries. shaping the climate and building a home for the explosion of life that followed. Soil might look simple, but it holds an ancient story of stone, water, and life. Long ago the land was mostly bare rock. Nothing could grow without something to anchor roots. Then plants developed roots which not only held them in place but reached into cracks for water and nutrients. As roots grew, they split the rock and let rainwater carry carbon dioxide down, forming weak acids that slowly broke the rock into sand, clay, and minerals. This is called chemical weathering. Roots helped make the earth growable. Underground they formed partnerships with fungi that had been living on land long before plants. Fungi could not make their own food but were great at finding nutrients, so they traded with plants, taking sugars from photosynthesis in exchange for minerals like phosphorus and nitrogen. These fine fungal threads, called hyphae, could reach places roots could not, linking plants together in a network known as mycorrhiza. This network acted like an underground web, letting plants share resources and even send signals. In ancient times this partnership allowed plants to live in poor soils, dry places, and rocky areas. Over time roots and fungi created rich, dark, living soil, which attracted microbes, worms, and insects, each playing a role in breaking down matter and building the ground we know today. Roots transformed hard stone into fertile earth, connected the sky to the soil, and made land capable of sustaining life. Without them the continents would still be bare rock, but with them the world beneath our feet became alive and ready to grow. Once plants had roots and soil to grow in, they began to spread and change the planet even more. Over millions of years some developed new ways to move water and nutrients through their bodies. This system, called vascular tissue, acted like tiny pipes carrying water up from roots to leaves and sending sugars down from leaves to roots. It allowed plants to grow taller and live in more places. Soon the first forests appeared with giant ferns, horsetails, and club mosses rising high above the ground. These plants shaded the soil, slowed winds, and created new habitats for insects and early animals. Their fallen leaves and stems piled up in wet swamps where low oxygen slowed decay. Over time this plant material turned into peat and eventually into coal, locking away huge amounts of carbon and cooling the Earth's climate. During the Carboniferous period oxygen levels were so high that insects grew enormous. With dragonflies as big as seagulls, forests also changed rainfall patterns and helped form stable climates. These early trees had no flowers or seeds yet, but reproduced with spores that needed moist conditions. Still, they covered vast areas and shaped the air, water, and soil in powerful ways. As they grew and died, they created layers of organic matter, feeding the next generations and making the land more fertile. The rise of forests marked a turning point where plants became architects of the environment, building complex ecosystems and setting the stage for the evolution of seed plants that would eventually dominate the land. After the age of giant ferns and spore plants, some plants evolved a powerful new adaptation. The seed, unlike spores which needed damp places to grow, seeds carried a tiny plant inside along with stored food and a protective coat. This meant they could survive long journeys, wait for the right conditions, and grow in many more environments. Seeds allowed plants to spread across dry land, cold regions, and open plains. Early seed plants included conifers like pines and cycads, which made seeds. Inside cones, they developed tough leaves with a waxy coating to hold moisture and could live in poor soils. Conifers became dominant in many parts of the world and still form huge forests today. Seeds changed the relationship between plants and animals. As some plants began making edible seeds and fruits, animals carried them to new places. In return, plants fed the animals. This cooperation shaped ecosystems. Over millions of years, flowering plants appeared, developing flowers to attract insects, birds, and other pollinators. Flowers were like invitations, offering nectar or pollen as food while ensuring the plant's pollen reached another flower. This increased genetic diversity and allowed plants to adapt faster. Flowering plants, or angiosperms, evolved into countless shapes, colors, and scents, filling every habitat from deserts to mountain tops. They formed partnerships with bees, butterflies, bats, and even wind. Their seeds often developed inside fruits which protected them and helped them travel farther. This explosion of diversity transformed the planet's landscapes, supporting more animals and creating the complex web of life we see today. Flowering plants kept evolving into an incredible variety of forms. Their ability to adapt made them the most successful plant group on Earth. Grasses appeared and changed the planet's surface. They grew quickly, survived grazing, and spread over vast areas to form grasslands. These open landscapes supported huge herds of animals and shaped human history. Grasses gave us crops like wheat, rice, corn, and barley, which became the foundation of civilizations. Humans learned to farm, store seeds, and grow food in large amounts, leading to permanent settlements and cities. Plants also provided fibers for clothes, wood for shelter, and medicines for healing. They influenced art, religion, and culture in every part of the world. Forests supplied timber, fruits, nuts, and herbs, while wetlands filtered water and protected coasts. Plants worked as Earth's life support, making oxygen, storing carbon, and keeping temperatures stable. Even the smallest moss or plankton cell plays a role in the balance of life. Yet plants face dangers from deforestation, pollution, climate change, and habitat loss. When too many are destroyed, the air, soil, and water all suffer. Protecting plants means protecting ourselves, because every breath, every meal, and every home depends on them. They are quiet companions through all of human history, asking for nothing but giving everything. Their story is the story of life on Earth. Even today, plants continue to shape the planet in ways we often overlook. Rainforests act like the lungs of Earth, taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen while storing vast amounts of carbon. They influence rainfall patterns across continents and support millions of species. Kelp forests in the oceans provide shelter and food for marine life. Seagrass meadows clean the water and protect coastlines. And plankton in the open sea produce much of the oxygen we breathe. Deserts bloom after rain with seeds that may have waited years underground. Mountain plants survive in thin air and freezing winds. showing that life can adapt almost anywhere. Plants are also teachers, reminding us of patience, resilience, and balance. They grow towards light, recover after storms, and give without asking for reward. Scientists study plants to find new medicines, improve crops, and understand how ecosystems work. But plants cannot protect themselves from large-scale destruction caused by humans. When forests are cut, wetlands drained, or grasslands plowed, the web of life weakens. Restoring nature means planting trees, protecting habitats, and letting damaged lands heal. Every person can help by growing plants, reducing waste, and caring for green spaces, because each leaf, each root, and each seed plays a part in the great living system that keeps our world alive. The story of plants is not just in the past. It is still being written, and we are part of it. From the first tiny microbes in ancient seas to the towering forests of today, the journey of plants is a story of transformation. They turned a barren, hostile planet into a green and living home. They shaped the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the climate we depend on. Every forest, grassland, wetland, and garden is part of the same ancient chain. Plants made the soil that holds our crops, the oxygen that fills our lungs, and the beauty that feeds our souls. They connect the smallest insect to the largest animal, including us. When we cut them down or poison the land, we break a system that took billions of years to build. Yet the green world is still resilient. Given time and care, it can heal. Forests can regrow, rivers can run clear, and life can return to bare ground. The survival of plants is tied to our own survival. If they thrive, we thrive. If they vanish, so will much of life as we know it. In every leaf there is history, in every seed there is a future. The gift they give is not only air and food but the reminder that life grows quietly, steadily, and with purpose. We only need to protect and respect it. The story of plants is the story of Earth, and it is up to us to make sure it continues. From the beginning of time, plants have been the steady heartbeat of Earth, quietly shaping the land, air, and water. While most life forms came and went, they never needed to move fast or make noise to change the world. Instead, they worked slowly and steadily, building the systems that support every breath we take. Long before humans appeared, they were creating the oxygen in the air, forming soil from stone, and storing energy from the sun in roots, seeds, and leaves. When the first forests spread across continents, they slowed winds, cooled climates, and made rain more predictable. Their roots held mountainsides together, their fallen leaves turned into rich soil, and their flowers and fruits drew animals that carried seeds far beyond their birthplace. In oceans, tiny phytoplankton floated near the surface, using sunlight to power the marine food chain. Even the largest whale depended on the work of these microscopic plants. Deserts seemed lifeless until rare rains awakened hidden seeds that had been waiting for years to bloom. Tundra plants stayed small and close to the ground, holding warmth and moisture in frozen lands. In every corner of the planet, plants learned to adapt to heat, cold, drought, flood, and storm. They showed a kind of patience humans rarely match, growing toward light no matter how many times they were cut, burned, or battered by wind. over centuries they became part of our culture, our food, our homes. And our medicines, we wove their fibers into clothes, carved their wood into tools, and brewed their leaves into healing drinks. We decorated our celebrations with flowers and built sacred spaces among trees, yet despite this deep connection we too often treat plants as background objects, clearing forests for short-term gains, poisoning the soil with chemicals, and ignoring the slow damage until the balance tips. When too many plants vanish, the chain reaction touches everything. Less oxygen, fewer pollinators, poorer soils, more erosion. Hotter climates, and weaker ecosystems. The good news is that plants can recover if given the chance. Forests regrow from saplings, prairies return if the soil is left unplowed, and wetlands heal when water flows back. Our role is to protect what remains and restore what is lost, because the green world is not just decoration, it is the living engine of the planet. Without it there is no life. Every person can take part by planting, protecting, and caring for green spaces, whether it is a backyard garden, a city park, or a wild forest. Each action adds to the whole. Plants ask for little but give endlessly, and their quiet persistence is the reason we are here today. The more we understand their role, the more we see that our future and theirs are one and the same. This is not just their story, it is ours too. Plants do not live alone, they are connected in ways that are invisible to the human eye. Beneath the soil lies a hidden network where roots and fungi work together to share resources. Scientists call this the mycorrhizal network, a living web that links trees, shrubs, and even tiny plants. Through it, nutrients travel from one plant to another. A large tree may send sugars to a shaded sapling, or a healthy plant may send defense signals to a neighbor under attack by pests. This underground cooperation helps forests survive storms, droughts, and disease. Above ground, plants interact with countless animals, from insects that pollinate flowers to birds that scatter seeds. These relationships are ancient and finely balanced. A bee visiting a flower is not just taking nectar, it is continuing a chain of life that began millions of years ago. Some plants bloom at specific times to match the life cycle of their pollinators, others produce fruit when animals are most active in spreading seeds. In the ocean, kelp forests shelter fish, crabs, and sea otters, while seagrass meadows act as nurseries for young marine life. Plants also influence weather by releasing water vapor through their leaves in a process called transpiration. In large forests this creates clouds and rain, affecting climate far beyond their own boundaries. Rainforests in South America help shape rainfall patterns in Africa, showing how deeply connected the planet's systems are, yet these connections are fragile. When too many plants disappear, the entire network weakens, pollinators lose food sources, animals lose shelter, and the soil begins to wash away. This is why conservation is not just about saving individual species, it is about protecting whole systems. Planting a tree is valuable, but protecting a forest is even more powerful because it keeps the web intact. Humans can also learn from plant cooperation. In farming, growing a mix of crops can protect soil, attract beneficial insects, and reduce disease without chemicals. Traditional farming methods in many cultures already practice this harmony. Understanding plant relationships can help restore damaged lands, bring back pollinators, and strengthen ecosystems. Every connection matters, from the tiniest root hair underground to the tallest tree touching the sky. Plants remind us that survival is not just about competition but about working together, sharing resources, and balancing needs. The more we respect these natural partnerships, the better chance we have to keep the planet thriving. We are part of this network too, even if we cannot see the threads. Every breath we take, every meal we eat, and every safe place we find is tied to the quiet, constant work of the green world. They have been shaping this planet long before we arrived, and if we choose to protect them, they will continue to shape it long after we are gone. Plants have faced countless challenges through history, from volcanic eruptions and ice ages to asteroid impacts and climate shifts, yet they have always found ways to adapt and survive. When the Earth cooled during ice ages, many plants retreated to warmer areas and returned when the ice melted. When continents moved and climates changed, seeds traveled by wind, water, and animals to find new places to grow. Some plants evolved thick bark to survive fires, others developed the ability to regrow quickly after being burned. In deserts, plants learn to store water in leaves, stems, or roots, and to open their pores only at night to reduce water loss. In wetlands, plants grew hollow stems to bring oxygen to roots submerged in water. High in the mountains, they stayed small and low to the ground to avoid freezing winds. Every adaptation was a lesson in patience, creativity, and resilience. Flowering plants in particular used variety as their strength, evolving endless shapes, colors, and scents to attract pollinators and spread seeds. This flexibility allowed them to become the most widespread and diverse plant group on Earth. Yet even with these strengths, modern threats like deforestation, pollution, invasive species, and climate change are happening faster than plants can adapt. Forests that took centuries to grow can be cleared in days. Wetlands that filter water and protect coasts can be drained in a single season. Grasslands that feed millions of animals can be turned into farmland almost overnight. The loss is not just of individual plants but of entire ecosystems. Each disappearance weakens the chain of life, but the story does not have to end here. Humans now have the knowledge and tools to help plants survive. We can protect wild areas, restore damaged lands, and plant native species that support local wildlife. We can reduce pollution, use water wisely, and choose farming methods that work with nature instead of against it. Every garden, park, and protected forest adds to the resilience of the planet. Seeds stored in seed banks around the world hold the potential to replant and restore in the future, but these efforts only work if we act in time. Plants have already shown us they can endure incredible challenges. If given the space and care, they will adapt and continue their quiet work. Their history is proof that life can survive against all odds, and their future depends on whether we choose to stand with them or let the green world fade away. Protecting plants is not just an act of kindness, it is an investment in the survival of every living thing, including ourselves, because in the end, their fate and ours are the same. The connection between plants and people goes far beyond food and materials. Plants are also healers, offering natural remedies that humans have relied on for thousands of years. Ancient civilizations recorded plant-based medicines on clay tablets, scrolls, and carvings, passing knowledge from generation to generation. Willow bark was used to ease pain long before scientists discovered it contained the compound that became aspirin. Aloe vera soothed burns and wounds, ginger eased nausea, and countless herbs treated fevers, infections, and digestive problems. Even today, a large percentage of modern medicines come from plants or are inspired by plant compounds. Rainforest plants, for example, have given us drugs to fight cancer, heart disease, and malaria, yet many plant species with potential medical uses remain undiscovered, and habitat loss threatens to erase them before they can be studied. Plants also heal in ways science is only beginning to measure: the sight of green leaves, the smell of flowers, or the sound of wind through trees can lower stress, improve mood, and speed recovery from illness. Gardens and green spaces are used in therapy for people with anxiety, depression, or trauma. Urban parks help reduce heat, clean the air, and give city dwellers a place to reconnect with nature. The benefits of plants extend into the invisible as well. Every leaf cleans the air by absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. Many plants filter harmful chemicals from soil and water, turning polluted areas into safe habitats again. Some are even used in phytoremediation projects to clean up oil spills or heavy metals from contaminated land. Plants protect us in emergencies too. Mangrove forests shield coastal towns from storm surges, and trees reduce the risk of floods by holding soil and slowing water runoff. Despite these gifts, we often overlook the services plants provide for free, services that would cost billions to replace artificially. Recognizing their value means protecting not just the plants themselves but also the environments they depend on. When we lose a forest, we lose a pharmacy, a climate regulator, a flood barrier, and a sanctuary all at once. Preserving plant diversity is an investment in human health, environmental stability, and future discovery. Every seed holds possibilities we may not yet understand, but we will never know their potential if we allow them to disappear. Plants have healed us for as long as we have existed, and in return, they now need us to help heal the planet we share. Plants also play a vital role in balancing the Earth's climate, acting as natural regulators that keep temperatures and weather patterns stable. Through photosynthesis they pull carbon dioxide, one of the main greenhouse gases, out of the atmosphere and store it in their leaves, stems, roots, and even deep underground in soil. Forests, grasslands, and wetlands together store more carbon than all the world's fossil fuel reserves. When these ecosystems are destroyed, the stored carbon is released back into the air, worsening climate change. Tropical rainforests like the Amazon are often called the lungs of the planet, but they are also its thermostat, controlling rainfall patterns not only in South America but as far away as Africa. Large forests create their own clouds through transpiration, helping to cool the air and bring rain to distant regions. Coastal mangroves and salt marshes, sometimes called blue carbon ecosystems, are even more efficient at storing carbon than forests. Locking it away in mud and roots for centuries. Grasslands and savannas, often overlooked, store massive amounts of carbon in their deep root systems. making them critical allies in slowing climate change, but deforestation, overgrazing, and industrial farming are breaking these systems, turning them from carbon sinks into carbon sources. Restoring damaged ecosystems can reverse this trend. Planting native trees, protecting grasslands from overuse, and allowing wetlands to recover can all help. Pull carbon from the air and lock it safely away. Urban areas can also contribute by creating green roofs, planting street trees, and preserving parks. Even small pockets of greenery help cool cities, reduce energy use, and absorb pollution. Beyond carbon storage, plants buffer the impacts of extreme weather, forests slow strong winds, wetlands absorb floodwaters, and healthy soils hold moisture during droughts. These natural defenses are far cheaper and more effective than man-made solutions. Yet they are disappearing at alarming rates. Climate change is already stressing plants through shifting seasons, unpredictable rainfall, and rising temperatures, but plants have the ability to adapt if we give them space and time. Preserving genetic diversity in wild plants ensures they have the traits needed to survive new conditions. Humans can support this by reducing emissions, protecting ecosystems, and planting resilient species. The fight against climate change is not only about technology and policy, it is also about respecting and working with the green systems that have been balancing the Earth for millions of years. Plants are not just passive victims of climate change, they are active partners in solving it, but only if we choose to protect them before it is too late. Plants also play a vital role in balancing the Earth's climate, acting as natural regulators that keep temperatures and weather patterns stable. Through photosynthesis they pull carbon dioxide, one of the main greenhouse gases, out of the atmosphere and store it in their leaves, stems, roots, and even deep underground in soil. Forests, grasslands, and wetlands together store more carbon than all the world's fossil fuel reserves. When these ecosystems are destroyed, the stored carbon is released back into the air, worsening climate change. Tropical rainforests like the Amazon are often called the lungs of the planet, but they are also its thermostat, controlling rainfall patterns not only in South America but as far away as Africa. Large forests create their own clouds through transpiration, helping to cool the air and bring rain to distant regions. Coastal mangroves and salt marshes, sometimes called blue carbon ecosystems, are even more efficient at storing carbon than forests. Locking it away in mud and roots for centuries, grasslands and savannas, often overlooked, store massive amounts of carbon in their deep root systems, making them critical allies in slowing climate change. But deforestation, overgrazing, and industrial farming are breaking these systems, turning them from carbon sinks into carbon sources. Restoring damaged ecosystems can reverse this trend. Planting native trees, protecting grasslands from overuse, and allowing wetlands to recover can all help. Pull carbon from the air and lock it safely away. Urban areas can also contribute by creating green roofs, planting street trees, and preserving parks. Even small pockets of greenery help cool cities, reduce energy use, and absorb pollution. Beyond carbon storage, plants buffer the impacts of extreme weather, forests slow strong winds, wetlands absorb floodwaters, and healthy soils hold moisture during droughts. These natural defenses are far cheaper and more effective than man-made solutions. Yet they are disappearing at alarming rates. Climate change is already stressing plants through shifting seasons, unpredictable rainfall, and rising temperatures, but plants have the ability to adapt if we give them space and time. Preserving genetic diversity in wild plants ensures they have the traits needed to survive new conditions. Humans can support this by reducing emissions, protecting ecosystems, and planting resilient species. The fight against climate change is not only about technology and policy, it is also about respecting and working with the green systems that have been balancing the Earth for millions of years. Plants are not just passive victims of climate change, they are active partners in solving it, but only if we choose to protect them before it is too late. Plants also hold deep cultural, spiritual, and symbolic meaning for people across the world. They appear in myths, legends, and religious texts, often representing life, renewal, healing, or wisdom. Ancient civilizations worshipped certain trees as sacred, believing they connected the earth to the heavens. In many cultures, the oak, fig, or banyan tree became a symbol of strength and endurance. Flowers have been used to express love, friendship, grief, and hope, each carrying its own language. In Japan, the cherry blossom is a reminder of the beauty and shortness of life, while in India the lotus represents purity and spiritual awakening. Plants are woven into rituals from weddings to funerals, harvest festivals to New Year celebrations. They mark the passage of seasons, guide planting times, and signal the rhythms of life. In art, literature, and music, plants often serve as metaphors for human emotions and experiences. A seed becoming a tree mirrors growth and perseverance. A withered flower reflects loss or change. Even in modern life, we keep plants in our homes and workplaces not only for decoration but for comfort, peace, and connection to nature. Studies show that having plants indoors can improve mood, reduce stress, and boost creativity. Gardens, whether small balconies or vast landscapes, become places of reflection, healing, and community. Plants also inspire human innovation. The structure of leaves has influenced solar panel design. The grip of burrs led to the invention of Velcro, and the efficiency of photosynthesis drives research in clean energy. By observing and learning from plants, we find solutions to human challenges, yet the deeper meaning plants hold is not just practical but personal. They are part of our identity and heritage. The trees we climbed as children, the flowers planted by a grandparent, the forests that shaped the stories of our ancestors. These connections stay with us. When plants vanish, we lose not only biodiversity, but pieces of our culture and memory. Protecting them is also protecting who we are, the stories we tell, and the values we pass on. Plants are not just background scenery in the human journey, they are companions, teachers, and symbols of everything that keeps life moving forward. Their presence shapes our spirit as much as our environment, reminding us that we are rooted in the same earth and nourished by the same light. Plants also shape the way we design and build our world, from the earliest shelters made of branches, leaves, and reeds to modern architecture inspired by natural forms. Humans have looked to plants for both materials and ideas. Wood from trees has been one of the most important building resources in history, used for houses, ships, bridges, and tools. Bamboo, strong yet flexible, has served as scaffolding, flooring, and even water pipes in many cultures. Thatch made from grasses and palm leaves provided roofs that stayed cool in hot climates. Fibers from cotton, flax, hemp, and jute have been spun into fabrics for clothing, sails, and rope, dyes from plants colored textiles and art long before synthetic pigments existed, but plants have influenced not just what we make, but how we design it. The shapes of leaves, the patterns of branches, and the structures of flowers have inspired innovations in engineering, energy efficiency, and construction. This approach, called biomimicry, uses nature's solutions to solve human problems. For example, studying the way trees transport water has helped create better water distribution systems, and learning from the way lotus leaves repel dirt has led to self-cleaning surfaces. Green architecture now incorporates living plants into walls, roofs, and public spaces, improving air quality, reducing heat, and creating habitats in cities. Urban planners are recognizing that parks, tree-lined streets, and community gardens are as essential to a healthy city as roads and buildings. Plants reduce noise, provide shade, and cool the air, lowering the need for energy-hungry air conditioning. They also help manage stormwater by absorbing rainfall and preventing floods. The integration of plants into human spaces benefits both people and wildlife, but these green spaces must be protected and expanded, especially as urban areas grow. Choosing native plants supports local ecosystems and requires less maintenance, restoring plant life in degraded landscapes can transform barren areas into thriving environments. The more we build with plants in mind, the more sustainable and livable our world becomes. Plants offer us renewable resources, innovative ideas, and natural beauty, but their presence in design is also a reminder of our connection to the earth. They show us that growth and shelter, strength and flexibility, can exist together, and that human progress can happen in harmony with the living systems that sustain us. By learning from plants and including them in our built environments, we create spaces that are not only functional but alive, places where people and nature can flourish side by side. Plants are also powerful teachers, showing us lessons about patience, resilience, and balance that we can apply to our own lives. They grow slowly but steadily, never rushing yet always moving toward the light. They adapt to challenges without giving up, bending with the wind instead of breaking. When a branch is cut, many plants simply grow another. When storms or drought strike, they conserve energy and wait for better conditions. Plants remind us that progress is not always about speed, but about persistence and timing. Their cycles of growth, flowering, fruiting, and resting mirror the rhythms in human life. There are times to push forward and times to pause, times to produce and times to renew. In their diversity we see the power of cooperation. In a healthy ecosystem no plant exists alone, each plays a role, from towering trees that shelter others to tiny ground covers that protect the soil. Some plants share nutrients through root networks, others provide food for pollinators that in turn help many species reproduce. This interdependence teaches us the importance of community and mutual support. Plants also show the value of balance. They take from their environment only what they need, and in return they give back oxygen, shade, food, and shelter. They live in harmony with the systems that sustain them. Unlike many human activities that deplete resources, if we lived more like plants, taking only what we need and giving back to keep the cycle strong, our world would be healthier. Their quiet strength reminds us that influence does not require noise or force. Sometimes the most transformative work happens slowly and silently, over years or even centuries, plants also embody hope. Every seed is a promise of the future. Even in the harshest conditions, seeds wait patiently for the right moment to grow, reminding us that potential can survive long periods of difficulty. Waiting for the right conditions to thrive. When we care for plants, we learn to care for ourselves and for the systems we depend on. They teach us that small actions, watering a seedling, protecting a tree, planting a garden, can have lasting effects. Plants are living proof that growth is possible in any environment if the right care and persistence are given. In their stillness they speak volumes about endurance, generosity, and harmony, and by listening to their example, we can find better ways to live, work, and grow in balance with the world around us. Plants are also powerful indicators of the health of our environment. They respond quickly to changes in air, water, and soil, often showing signs of stress long before humans notice a problem. Yellowing leaves, stunted growth, or changes in flowering times can signal pollution, climate shifts, or nutrient loss. Scientists study these changes to understand the impact of human activities and natural events. When certain plants disappear from an area, it can mean the soil or water has become too toxic. When invasive species take over, it can show that an ecosystem's balance has been disturbed. Flowering and fruiting patterns are also sensitive to temperature and rainfall, so shifts in these cycles are early warnings of climate change. Some plants, known as bioindicators, are used to monitor air quality, such as lichens that can only grow in clean air. Others help detect soil contamination or water pollution. Plants can even be used as living sensors in agriculture, signaling when they need more water or nutrients. By paying attention to these signals, we can take action to prevent larger problems. Protecting plants is not just about saving species, it is also about maintaining a system that can alert us to environmental threats before they become crises. When we ignore these warnings, we risk losing both plants and the services they provide. Early detection through plants can guide conservation efforts, influence farming practices, and shape policies to protect natural resources. In this way, plants act as both guardians and messengers, keeping the balance of life in check. Our responsibility is to listen to them, to notice when they change, and to understand what they are telling us, because their survival is tied directly to ours. The signals they send are not just about their own well-being, but about the health of the entire planet. By caring for them and responding to their warnings, we can create a safer, healthier, and more stable world for all life. Plants are also essential partners in agriculture, not only as crops themselves but as part of the larger systems that make farming possible. They enrich soil, prevent erosion, attract pollinators, and provide shade or wind protection for other plants. Traditional farming methods often relied on planting a mix of crops together so they could support each other. For example, beans fix nitrogen in the soil, benefiting grains like corn, while tall plants can protect smaller ones from harsh sun or wind. Trees on farms can provide fruit, firewood, and animal fodder while also keeping the soil fertile and holding water in the ground. Modern industrial farming, with its focus on single-crop fields and heavy chemical use, has broken many of these natural partnerships, leading to soil depletion, loss of biodiversity, and increased vulnerability to pests and disease. Restoring plant diversity in farming can improve yields, reduce costs, and make crops more resilient to extreme weather. Cover. Crops like clover or rye can be planted between harvests to protect soil, prevent weeds, and feed beneficial insects. Hedgerows and flower strips along fields can attract pollinators and predators that naturally control pests. Even small-scale farmers can benefit from these approaches, and urban agriculture can adapt them for rooftops, balconies, and community gardens. By working with plants instead of against them, farmers can create systems that are productive, sustainable, and healthy for both people and the environment. Technology can support this process through precision agriculture, using sensors to track plant needs and deliver water or nutrients efficiently, but technology should complement, not replace, the wisdom of plant-based farming practices. The future of agriculture depends on rebuilding the partnership between people and plants, seeing them not just as commodities but as allies in creating a stable food system. Protecting and nurturing them is the key to feeding the world without exhausting the land, water, and climate we all depend on. Plants are also vital for the stability and fertility of soil, holding it in place, enriching it with nutrients, and creating the conditions needed for other life to thrive. Without plants, soil is exposed to wind and rain, which quickly erode it and wash away the organic matter that makes it fertile. Roots form a living network that binds the soil together, while fallen leaves, stems, and other plant material decompose into humus, adding nutrients and improving the soil's ability to hold water. Plants also interact with countless soil organisms such as fungi, bacteria, and insects, forming complex underground ecosystems that recycle nutrients, break down waste, and support plant growth. Some plants, like legumes, form partnerships with bacteria that fix nitrogen from the air, turning it into a form plants can use. This natural process reduces the need for chemical fertilizers and helps maintain soil health. Cover crops and deep-rooted plants can restore compacted or depleted soils, improving structure and preventing erosion. Forests protect mountain slopes from landslides, grasslands keep prairies rich and stable, and mangroves hold coastal sediments in place. Yet human activities such as deforestation, overgrazing, and industrial farming often strip the land of vegetation, leading to soil degradation and desertification. Restoring plant life in damaged areas can reverse this trend. Even small-scale efforts like planting windbreaks, reintroducing native species, or practicing crop rotation can greatly improve soil health. Urban areas can also benefit by planting vegetation in vacant lots and along roadsides, reducing dust and creating pockets of fertile ground. Healthy soils are the foundation of food security, water management, and biodiversity, and plants are the architects that build and maintain them. Without plants, soil becomes lifeless dust, unable to support crops, filter water, or store carbon. Protecting vegetation is therefore not just about preserving beauty or wildlife, it is about safeguarding the very ground beneath our feet. When we care for plants, we care for the soil, and when we care for the soil, we ensure the survival of all life that depends on it. Plants are also at the heart of the world's oxygen supply, making the air breathable for humans and animals through the process of photosynthesis. They take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, a gas that is essential for most life on Earth. Forests, grasslands, and even tiny plants in oceans called phytoplankton produce the oxygen we depend on every moment. Rainforests like the Amazon are often called the lungs of the planet because they generate enormous amounts of oxygen while absorbing massive amounts of carbon dioxide. In the oceans, phytoplankton are responsible for producing at least half of the planet's oxygen, showing that life on land and life in water are deeply connected. Plants also help maintain the balance of gases in the atmosphere, keeping oxygen levels steady and preventing harmful buildups of carbon dioxide. Without plants, oxygen would quickly be used up by animals, humans, and even the process of decay, making the planet uninhabitable. Deforestation, pollution, and climate change threaten this delicate balance, reducing plant life on land and in water. When forests are cleared or ocean waters become too warm and polluted, the plants that produce oxygen die, and the entire system begins to break down. Protecting oxygen-producing ecosystems is not just about saving plants, it is about saving the air we breathe, planting trees, restoring wetlands, protecting seagrass meadows, and reducing pollution in rivers and oceans can all strengthen these oxygen systems. Even small actions like planting gardens, avoiding harmful chemicals, and supporting conservation projects make a difference. Oxygen may be invisible, but it is the most constant reminder of our dependence on plants. Every breath we take is a gift from them, and our survival depends on keeping this cycle strong. By protecting plants, we protect the invisible yet vital force that keeps all life alive, ensuring that the air remains fresh, clean, and abundant for generations to come. Plants are also a source of energy, both directly and indirectly, providing food that fuels animals and humans, and materials that can be used as fuel. For thousands of years people have burned wood, dried grasses, and other plant matter for warmth, cooking, and light. Even today, in many parts of the world, wood remains a primary energy source. Plants also produce biomass that can be converted into biofuels like ethanol and biodiesel, which are used to power vehicles and generate electricity. Crops such as sugarcane, corn, and soy are grown for this purpose, while algae are being developed as a promising renewable fuel source. Unlike fossil fuels, which release carbon that has been locked underground for millions of years, biofuels recycle carbon that plants recently absorbed from the atmosphere, making them potentially more sustainable if produced responsibly. However, large-scale biofuel production can lead to deforestation, water shortages, and competition with food crops if not carefully managed. Beyond fuel, plants are the original source of much of the energy we use indirectly, as they capture sunlight and convert it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. This energy is then passed along food chains, sustaining herbivores, carnivores, and ultimately humans. Fossil fuels themselves are ancient plant matter transformed over millions of years, reminding us that even the energy powering our modern world comes from plants. Future energy solutions may depend more heavily on plant-based systems, from algae farms that produce oil to crops that generate materials for clean-burning stoves. Integrating plants into renewable energy strategies can help reduce reliance on coal, oil, and gas. Plants show us that energy can be gathered and used without destroying the systems that support life. The challenge is to use this wisdom to create energy systems that are both efficient and sustainable. By valuing plants as energy partners, we can power the future in ways that keep the planet green, healthy, and alive for generations to come.